Russian President Vladimir Putin described the meeting in Alaska with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump as timely and useful. In Bolivia, it has been confirmed that this Sunday's elections will see one of the largest deployments of international observers ever, with more than 500 people. And in Pakistan, recent flash floods in the northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa left at least 340 people dead and over 23 injured, and many more missing. Hello from the south, I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Russian President Vladimir Putin described the meeting in Alaska with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump as timely and useful. The president revealed that during his meeting with his U.S. counterpart, they talked about key elements of the two-way relationship, particularly the resolution of the Ukrainian dispute. President Putin emphasized that he and President Trump discussed the causes of the Ukrainian crisis together and stressed the need for hostilities to cease as soon as possible through peaceful means.
First and foremost, of course, we discussed the possible solution to the Ukrainian crisis on a fair basis, and of course we had the opportunity to talk about the origins, the reasons, the causes of this crisis, and the eradication of those primary causes, to which we must pay special attention to regulating this conflict.
At the Alaska summit, President Putin told the U.S. administration that Russia is willing to resolve the conflict with Ukraine through peaceful means.
It has been a long time since we had direct dialogue at such a high level. We had the opportunity to explain our position calmly, of course. We respect the position of the U.S. administration, who is aware of the need to cease fighting as soon as possible. And we would also like to move on, and to resolve all issues through peaceful means.
For his part, U.S. President Donald Trump highlighted the importance of reaching a peace agreement and President Putin's intention to end the conflict with Ukraine.
Extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, otherwise, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you.
After the Alaska summit between the U.S. and Russian presidents, the head of the White House, Donald Trump, held a call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and a video conference with several European and North Atlantic Treaty Organization leaders. This was confirmed by the president's spokeswoman, Caroline Leavitt, who added that the call with the Ukrainian president was extensive and occurred on the flight back to Washington without providing further details. U.S. media reported that President Trump had also held a video conference with President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, with the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and with representatives of the governments of Germany, Finland, Poland, Italy, and the United Kingdom. Once the news was released early this Saturday, Zelensky confirmed that he will be in Washington on August 18th. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres recognized the meeting between the presidents Vladimir Putin of Russia and Donald Trump of the United States held on Friday in Alaska. It was announced by his spokesperson Stefan Dujarric, who assured that the Secretary General welcomed the continued and constructive dialogue between member states. The spokesperson for the multilateral organization added that the UN Secretary General reiterated his call for an immediate ceasefire as the first step toward achieving peace in Ukraine. In addition to holding the meeting between the presidents, the UN ratified the need for Ukraine also be represented in these spaces. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte's recent visit to Santa Rosa Island on August 15th has further escalated tensions in a long-standing border dispute with Colombia. Boluarte's uncompromising declaration that Peru will not cede even an inch of territory reflects a confrontational stance that risks inflaming an already delicate situation. The island, home to approximately 3,000 residents, is situated in a region where river boundaries are prone to natural shifts. Colombia has called for a fair and transparent bilateral review to address the border uncertainty, while Peru's recent move to elevate Santa Rosa to district status appears to sidestep diplomatic norms. Critics argue that Boluarte's hardline rhetoric and actions risk undermining efforts for peaceful resolution and could isolate Peru diplomatically in the region. And in Bolivia, it has been confirmed that this Sunday's elections will see one of the largest deployments of international observers ever, with more than 500 people. Correspondent Fred Morales with the details.
International observers, in this case from the European Union, began arriving and traveling around the country a month ago. Sunday's elections have raised international interest.
19 observadores electorales.
There are 19 election observers from the European Union with 135 observers,
135 observadores, la OEA con 89 observadores,
the OAS with 89 observers, and others such as the Andinian Parliament,
Parlamento Andino, el Parlamento del Mercosur,
the Mercosur Parliament, 14 international observer institutions, and 5 national observers will participate.
y 5 observadores nacionales.
The Foreign Ministry also announced that elections are guaranteed to take place this Sunday in 22 countries.
Estamos coadyuvando a través
We are working through consulates and embassies to ensure that Bolivians can also vote abroad on Sunday.
bolivianas el día domingo también puedan ejercer sus votos en el exterior. Se han establecido en 22
Voting will take place in 22 countries, and 154 precincts, at 1,200 polling stations that we have in the Foreign Service.
que tenemos en el servicio exterior.
The police reported that, in accordance with the protocol for such occasions, it has ordered all its personnel to remain in their barracks, and has a contingency plan in place to act in the event of unforeseen circumstances.
These 25,000 men and women who will be in specific areas of the general election event have nothing to do with the rest of the Bolivian police force. They will be involved in ordinary routine prevention and assistance services, case management, and the handling of common crimes in the various institutions.
In recent hours, during the inauguration of a new commander of the armed forces, President Luis Arce called on the population to strengthen democracy by turning out en masse to vote this Sunday.
We must respect the democratic process. We have differences, and these differences must be resolved at the ballot box democratically. That is why we take this opportunity to urge the Bolivian people once again to go to the polls next Sunday to vote for their best option. So that we can make a long transition in a peaceful and democratic manner. Democratically, so that those of us who entered this great house with our brother Gelada through the front door may also leave through the front door.
The Supreme Electoral Court reported that more than 500 international observers were accredited, the highest number recorded in more than 2 decades of national elections. 8 candidates are participating in this election, 6 of whom are from the radical and moderate right, and 2 candidates from the left, born of the movement towards socialism.
Del movimiento al socialismo. Freddy Morales, teleSUR, Bolivia.
Palestine received humanitarian aid trucks with limited amounts of food to be distributed in vulnerable areas of the Gaza Strip. In an attempt to partially alleviate the food crisis in the coastal enclave, international organizations send humanitarian packages with limited amounts of food which do not include chicken, meat, or cooking gas. The goods were distributed in the Al-Rasai market located in central Gaza. Palestinian civilians reported that although some products are available, they are difficult to acquire due to rising prices.
Some food arrived today, but there is no money to buy it. We have a few onions and potatoes, but there is a shortage of meat, poultry, and frozen products. I own restaurants and we have nothing to do. As you can see in the market, the situation is difficult. People don't have money to buy things. What can I do? These are the necessities of life, and part of the reality we live in. We are living in tents and going through terrible conditions. Look how we sweat working.
Mira cómo sudamos trabajando. Por supuesto, el mercado no ha cambiado mucho con respecto a antes. No hay productos nuevos. Los mismos productos.
Of course, there are no new products on the market. The same products are repeated, and we lack proteins. There is no chicken, no fish, no frozen meat. So far, nothing has been brought in, and the liquidity crisis is getting worse every day. Every day is worse than the previous one. We demand that the liquidity crisis be resolved and that protein be provided in the market.
Y otorgando asistencia financiera para que puedan continuar con sus vidas como antes de la guerra.
Desde el 7 de octubre hasta hoy, vivo la tragedia en todos sus detalles y por más que intentamos.
From October 7th until today, I have been living through the tragedy in all its details. We cannot describe the reality we are experiencing. We are afraid of the Israelis, the destruction, and the lack of security. We have vegetables, but there is no meat, fish, or eggs for the children. Children need eggs, meat, and milk, and all of that has been unavailable for 2 years. Who are we going to demand this from? Is there anyone who cares about us? Everyone says they condemn it, and are sending aid, but it does not help. It is humiliation for the people of Gaza.
And in Mauritania, people took to the streets of the country's capital, Nouakchott, demonstrating against the ongoing Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip. On Friday, protesters raised Palestinian flags and chanted slogans condemning the Israeli army's blockade of humanitarian aid. Demonstrators also demanded the international community to pressure Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to halt hostilities in the coastal enclave. Through these demonstrations, student movements reaffirmed their support and solidarity with the Palestinian people. And in Russia, at least 11 people were killed and 130 injured in a fire at an industrial plant in the Ryazan region. Local authorities report the incident occurred near Lesnoy village in the Shulovsky district when a gunpowder warehouse at the synthetic fiber plant caught fire, triggering the explosion. Emergency teams report that 13 of the injured were transferred to hospitals in Ryazan and another 16 to medical centers in Moscow. Meanwhile, rescuers are still at the scene of the accident to help those who remain under the rubble. We now have our second break. Remember, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, don't go away. Welcome back. Turkey has rejected the 2024 human rights report from the U.S. State Department in which it is accused of terrorism. The Turkish Foreign Ministry affirmed that it fights against all manifestation of terrorism in accordance with fundamental rights and freedoms. Ankara declared that the accusations in the report are far from reality and regretted that they are being promoted by criminal organizations with the aim of deceiving. In response, it stated that its anti-terrorism operations are based on the right to self-defense and are designated to protect civilians and infrastructure. And the northwest of Pakistan has been hit by severe flooding, with death toll now standing at over 340 and at least 23 people reported to be injured. The National Disaster Management Authority confirmed that at least 31 were missing after landslides in the Jaibi region. During rescue efforts, a total of 1,834 civilians were rescued and evacuated, including tourists. According to the latest report, the emergency agency alerted that more than 108 affected, 45 were destroyed, and 73 suffered partial damage.
50 bodies have been recovered from the village of Kadir Nagar, and about 30 people are still missing. Funeral preparations are being made and villagers have gathered, but no help has arrived.
25 of our family members have died fighting the floods. My nephew was coming from Malaysia, so one of my brothers went to pick him up, and I was at school, so we survived.
And in Asia, at least 60 people have died and 150 have been injured due to flooding in the Indian-administered region of Kashmir. On Saturday, rescuers continue their search and efforts to locate dozens of missing victims. According to the latest figures, more than 300 people were rescued while another 4,000 were evacuated to safe areas after losing their homes in landslides. Residents are demanding help from the government, claiming they feel unprotected from the impact of climate change. And Afghanistan is facing a severe water crisis that is driving widespread displacement across the country. In early 2025, extreme weather events including floods, droughts, heavy snow, and cold waves affected nearly 5 million people, with more than 175,000 internally displaced due to climate-related disasters. Rural communities have been hardest hit, suffering damage to homes, farmland, and infrastructure, while over 80% report lacking access to formal water systems. Food insecurity is rising as drought and displacement disrupt agricultural and market supply, forcing many Afghans to migrate within and beyond the country's borders. The capital city of Kabul is particularly vulnerable, with groundwater levels having dropped by as much as 30 meters in the last decade due to over-extraction, rapid urban growth, and climate change. The French Meteorological Service has maintained an orange alert in 54 departments of the metropolitan area due to temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. The Meteorological Agency reported that the intense heat wave reached record temperatures of up to 42.9 degrees in some areas, including the Ardèche region. It also reported that more than 100 people were taken to the emergency room for dehydration or heat stroke. Civil Protection recommended residents stay hydrated and avoid physical exercise, especially vulnerable people. And August 16th marks 100 days since Pope Leo XIV stepped onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica as the new leader of the Catholic Church. The Supreme Pontiff has dedicated his first few months to listening to those in need, seeking to lead the Church to dialogue and example. Pope Leo has focused his work on trying to mediate the divisions that generate global conflicts, offering messages of unity, peace, and global solidarity. During the first few days of his pontificate, the leader of the Catholic Church has urged the international community to stop forced displacements and genocide against the Palestinian people.
Thank you for your witness of faith.
Alla comunità internazionale
I appeal to the international community to observe humanitarian law and respect the obligation to protect civilians, as well as the prohibition of collective punishment, the indiscriminate use of force, and the forced displacement of populations.
Forza e di spostamento forzato della popolazione. Ai nostri amati cristiani medio orientali dico: Sono vicino
To our beloved Middle Eastern Christians, I sympathize with your feeling that there is little you can do in the face of this deranged situation. You are in the heart of the Pope and the whole Church. Thank you for your witness of faith.
Grazie per la vostra testimonianza di fede.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Roberto Matos. Thank you for watching.